The mug didn't just slip, it exploded. Hot coffee splashed across the counter, dripping down the sleeve of the white man who'd been glaring at her all morning. Imani froze, breath locking in her chest, the diner going silent as the man's fist tightened. And before she could whisper, "I'm sorry," his hand cracked across her face. If this already made your blood boil, tap like, and subscribe so you don't miss stories where justice finally wins. Imani staggered back, one hand on her cheek, her curls trembling as the entire diner stared at her like she caused a scene instead of surviving one. Her voice shook as she tried to steady the mug, still rolling on the counter. I'm sorry, sir. Please. I didn't mean to." The white man, Ryan, broad-billed, sharp jaw, the kind who bragged about knowing his rights, leaned in with a sneer. "You people never mean to," he growled. "Can't even pour coffee right." Not a single customer moved. Not a single fork lifted. Even the cooks behind the grill pretended not to notice. The air tasted like metal and humiliation. Imani swallowed hard, blinking back the sting in her eyes. Her shift was barely 2 hours in. She still had 6 more to survive. She needed the money. She needed the job. And Ryan knew it. He stepped closer, lowering his voice but sharpening his tone. "Try that again, and I'll make sure your manager throws you out on the street. Understand me?" She nodded quickly, heart pounding against her ribs. Her cheek throbbed. Her pride screamed. But survival always won. Behind her, the kitchen door swung open. Cole, her manager, walked out wiping his hands, looking annoyed before he even reached them. "What now, Imani?" he sighed loudly. "What did you do this time?" Her lips parted in disbelief. He hit me. I dropped." Cole cut her off with a dismissive wave. "I don't care who hit who. This man pays. You don't give him attitude." He turned to Ryan with a rehearsed smile. "Sir, we apologize. She's been difficult lately." Imani's stomach dropped. Ryan smirked, settling smugly into the booth like a king satisfied with his punishment. He didn't even look at her anymore, but someone else did. From a far corner of the diner, quiet, still unnoticed, a man slowly set down his coffee cup. He hadn't said a word since he walked in. He hadn't even glanced up during the chaos. Until now, and when he finally lifted his eyes toward Imani, it felt like the entire diner shifted. Imani stood there trembling, but the pain on her cheek was what scared her most. It was a fear that tonight her little girl might sleep hungry again. The fear that one mistake, one incident, one racist man might take away the only job keeping them alive. And the worst part? No one in that diner seemed to care. If this happened in front of you, what would you do? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if you stand for fairness, hit subscribe. Imani inhaled slowly, forcing her hands to steady as she wiped the counter. She'd learned to clean while shaking. She'd learned to smile while bruised. She'd learned to survive humiliation so her daughter, Ava, could have one stable thing in her life. Cole leaned closer, voice low and sharp. "Get together, Imani. You're on thin ice." Thin ice. She'd been living on it for years. "Yes, sir," she whispered. Ryan watched her like she was entertainment, tapping his fingers on the table with open arrogance. "You heard him, sweetheart. Move faster." Her chest tightened. Sweetheart. The kind of word that wasn't sweet at all. She turned away before the tears could form, grabbing a fresh pot and forcing her breathing into something that didn't sound broken. The diner clattered with plates and muffled gossip, yet somehow felt painfully silent around her. A pair of teenagers whispered at a booth behind her. "Isn't she the girl whose kid goes to that church daycare?" "Yeah, I heard she works double shifts. She always looks tired, bro. Tired." Yes, she was tired, but she was also invisible. She moved toward Ryan's table again, careful, gentle, trying not to tremble. But the moment she reached him, he pushed the empty cup toward her with a cold smirk. "Try not to spill this time." Imani flinched but didn't argue. Couldn't argue. Cole's voice echoed in her head. "This man pays. You don't." She poured. Slow, steady, silent. But from across the diner, The quiet man in the corner didn't take his eyes off her. His posture was relaxed, but something about his gaze, calm, focused, heavy with thought, made a strange unease ripple up her spine. Why was he watching her so closely? Why hadn't he looked away like everyone else? Why did he seem like he knew her pain? For the first time in years, someone wasn't watching her with judgment. He was watching her with understanding. And that scared her more than the slap. Because people who understood your pain could change your life or destroy it. The lunch rush rolled in like a storm, clattering plates, impatient voices, and the kind of noise that usually buried everything. But today, even with the chaos, Imani felt every sound scrape against her skin. Her cheeks still burned. Her pride still ached. And Ryan wasn't done. He flagged her down again by snapping his fingers, loud, sharp, intentional. "Hey, you, come here." Imani forced a breath into her lungs as she walked over. "Yes, sir." "You call this hot?" he barked, shoving the cup toward her. A splash of coffee hit her apron. "Are you really that useless?" A couple at the next table looked over, then quickly looked away. Imani bit her tongue, so hard it tasted like metal. "I'll remake it," she whispered. Ryan leaned back with a cruel grin. "You better. And this time, try using your brain." Laughter came from a booth behind him. Two men, both white, both smirking like this was a comedy show. "Man, she's slow," one said. "Probably hired her for charity," the other muttered. Imani felt her throat squeeze, the humiliation rising like heat under her skin. She turned away before her voice cracked and hurried back to the counter. Cole stepped into her path, his face annoyed, his tone clipped. "What did you do this time?" Her chest tightened. "I didn't save it," he snapped. "Table 6 has been waiting too long. Move." Imani nodded quickly, blinking rapidly to clear the blur forming in her eyes. She reached for the fresh pot, hands trembling again, but this time not from fear, from exhaustion, from being tired of surviving humiliation after humiliation. Behind her, the two men laughed again. "This is why you don't hire people like her." That's when the quiet man in the corner finally spoke. His voice was steady, low, and calm enough to slice through every noise in the diner. "That's enough." The room stiffened. Even Ryan paused mid-laugh. Imani froze, the coffee pot suspended in midair as she turned slowly toward the voice. The man, tall, composed, sharp eyes that saw everything, rose from his booth with deliberate calm. He didn't slam his hands. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't posture. He simply stepped forward like someone who had already made a decision. Cole frowned, defensive already. "Sir, is there a problem?" The man looked directly at Imani first, not at Cole, not at Ryan. Then he turned to the manager. "Yes," he said softly, "your entire diner is a problem." A hush fell like a curtain. Ryan scoffed loudly from his booth. "And who the hell are you supposed to be?" The man didn't even look at him. Instead, he stepped toward Imani, stopping beside her, close enough to shield her, close enough to make the entire diner hold its breath. And for the first time all day, Imani felt like she wasn't alone. The man didn't raise his voice, but when he looked at Ryan, it felt like the temperature in the entire diner dropped. There was something unsettling in his calm, something sharp, practiced, powerful, like a man who'd seen monster before and wasn't impressed by this one. And when he finally spoke, his words didn't sound like a customer's complaint. They sounded like a warning. If you believe talent can silence every insult, share this video. And to everyone watching from the US, UK, and Canada, your voice matters. Imani stood frozen, the coffee pot trembling slightly in her hand as the stranger positioned himself between her and the men who'd humiliated her all morning. Ryan scoffed loudly. "Oh, look, Captain Hero wants to play defender. Sit down, man. Nobody asked you." Still calm, the stranger lifted his gaze. "No," he said softly. "But someone needed to." Cole stepped forward, jaw tight. "Sir, you're disrupting business." The man raised one eyebrow. "You call this business?" Cole bristled. "This is my diner. I decide what's acceptable." The stranger tilted his head slightly, eyes scanning the filthy floor, the peeling paint, the broken light buzzing above the counter. "Your diner," he repeated. "You sure about that?" Cole blinked, thrown off. "Of course I'm." But the stranger's attention had already drifted back to Imani. "You all right?" he asked gently. His tone wasn't pity. It wasn't dramatic. It was understanding. Imani swallowed, unable to find her voice. She nodded faintly. Ryan barked a laugh behind them. "Oh, please. She's fine. She screws up every day." Typical. The stranger finally turned to face him fully. And this time, there was no softness left in his expression. Apologized to her. The whole diner tensed. Ryan leaned back, amused. "You're funny. You want me to apologize to a waitress?" "No," the man corrected. "I want you to apologize to a woman you assaulted." A few customers shifted uncomfortably. Someone near the window whispered. "He's right." Ryan stood up abruptly, puffing his chest. "You want to get hit too?" The stranger didn't flinch. "Try." The air cracked with silence. Cole rushed between them, panicked. Okay, everyone calm down. "Sir, I'm asking you to leave." But the stranger didn't move. Instead, he reached into his jacket, slowly. Ryan stepped back, suddenly unsure. The stranger pulled out a simple leather wallet. He opened it, set a $100 bill on the counter. "For her coffee," he said. Then another, for the cost of watching a good woman suffer while everyone stayed silent. The message wasn't in the money. It was in the way Cole's face drained of color, and the way Ryan stopped smirking. Because men like him, they recognize power, even before it introduced itself. The diner emptied slowly after the confrontation. Customers pretending to check their phones or finish their meals, all while stealing glances at the stranger who stood calmly beside Imani. No one wanted to be caught staring, but no one dared look away either. Cole rubbed his forehead, trying to regain control of the room. "Sir, look, whatever point you're trying to make it outside. We're done here." But the stranger didn't even acknowledge him. He lifted his cup, took one last quiet sip, then set it back down with a soft clink that felt louder than Ryan's slap. Then he turned to Imani. "I'll be back tomorrow," he said simply. That was it. No dramatic exit. No announcement. Just certainty. And he walked out. Imani watched him through the diner window as he crossed a lot toward an old, dusty truck that didn't match the confidence he carried. Something about him didn't add up. His clothes were plain. His car was old. But his presence, his eyes, the way he stood up without hesitation, it wasn't normal. It was practice, like a man used to stepping into storms. Cole didn't waste a second before snapping at her. "You've ruined this whole shift. Imani, do you understand that? Customers hate drama." Her chest tightened. Didn't he hit me? You always make things difficult." Cole cut in. "You better pray tomorrow goes smoother." She nodded, swallowing her tears, and finished her shift in silence. The next morning, Imani moved slower than usual. Her cheek had blossomed into a deep purple bruise. Ava tugged her shirt gently. "Mom, are you okay?" Imani forced a smile. "Of course, baby. Mama's strong." But inside, she didn't feel strong at all. She dropped Ava at daycare, kissed her forehead, and walked toward the diner with her stomach twisted into knots. She expected Ryan to return. She expected Cole to bark orders. She expected the same miserable routine. What she didn't expect was the stranger waiting at the same booth as yesterday. Same seat, same quiet posture, same unreadable eyes. He looked up the moment she walked in. "You came," he said. "I have to work," she murmured. "Not for long," he replied calmly. The word sent a ripple through her chest. Before she could ask what he meant, he reached into his pocket and slid something across the table. A business card. Thick, heavy, gold embossed. Liam Carter, Carter Industries. Owner, CO. Her breath stilled. Carter Industries wasn't small. It wasn't local. It was national. Massive. She looked up at him in shock. He held her gaze gently. "I didn't come yesterday as a customer," he said quietly. "I came because I needed to see something for myself." Her voice trembled. "See what?" The truth about how you're treated here. Imani's pulse rattled. But why? She whispered. Liam's expression softened painfully. Because your mother saved my life. Imani's breath caught as the words echoed in her ears. My mother? She whispered. Liam nodded gently. A long time ago. I was 16. Stupid. Angry. Running from things I didn't understand. Your mother, Danielle, found me behind the old community center after someone jumped me. She stayed with me until the ambulance came. I wouldn't have made it without her. Imani's eyes stung. Her mother had died years ago, and hearing her name spoken with that kind of reverence felt like a hand on her heart. She never told me, Imani murmured. She never bragged, Liam said softly. Heroes don't. Before she could respond, Cole stormed across the diner, waving a clipboard. Imani, what are you doing? We're short-staffed. You can't just stand around. She straightened instinctively, gripping her apron. Sorry, She was talking to me, Liam interrupted calmly. Cole rolled his eyes. Sir, with all due respect, you're starting to become a problem. Liam leaned back, unfazed. Funny, I was thinking the same thing about you. Cole scoffed. Oh, please. You walked in here 2 days in a row, and now you think you run the place? Liam tilted his head. Actually, yes. Cole blinked, confused. What? Liam slid a folded packet of documents across the table. I bought this diner 30 minutes ago. The room froze. A fork clattered from someone's hand. Customers turned. A cook leaned halfway out the kitchen window. Cole snatched the papers up, face flushing red. This is a joke. No, Liam replied. This is called consequences. Cole's voice cracked. You can't do this. I've worked here for 15 years. And in those 15 years, Liam said calmly, how many women like Imani did you let men like Ryan humiliate? Cole opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Liam stood, eyes steady. You're fired, Cole. The entire diner exhaled. You can't fire me. Cole shouted, swinging a desperate arm around the room. I've built this place. You've rotted it, Liam corrected. Cole turned to Imani like she would somehow save him. You can tell him I'm not that bad, right? I mean, come on, you're exaggerating what happened. Imani felt her body tremble, but for once, not from fear. She lifted her chin. No, she said quietly. You're exactly what happened. Cole's face collapsed. Liam motioned to one of the cooks. Call security to escort him out. Cole sputtered, cursed, protested. But the cooks, the servers, even a few customers helped guide him toward the door. For the first time in forever, he wasn't the one in charge. After the door slammed shut, the diner went silent again, but not with fear, with relief. Liam turned to Imani. You don't work for men like him anymore, he said softly. Imani swallowed. Then, who do I work for? Liam smiled. For me, he said, if you'll have the job. Her throat tightened. And what job is that? Manager, he replied. Imani's breath broke. Manager? But I've seen how you treat people, Liam said. With patience, with dignity, with strength. That's leadership. She covered her mouth, overwhelmed. No one's ever said that to me. Liam's voice softened. Then it's time someone did. Imani stood there, stunned, the word manager circling her mind like something unreal. Just yesterday, she'd been praying no one hit her again. Today, someone was handing her the keys to a life she never believed she deserved. The other employees gathered slowly around her. The teenage busboy gave a shy smile. The older cook nodded with pride. Even the customers, those same people who watched in silence yesterday, looked at her with something new in their eyes. Respect. Real, honest respect. Imani wiped her cheek gently, the bruise still sore but no longer defining her. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Liam stepped closer, his voice steady and warm. Say you'll take the chance your mother would have wanted for you. Her chest swelled at the mention of Danielle. Her mother had worked 3 jobs, protected everyone she loved, and carried a strength that never broke. even when life did. Imani nodded, tears rising. Then, yes, she said softly. I'll do it. Liam smiled. Good. First order of business? He said quietly. We're cleaning out every trace of what this place used to be. The staff straightened, ready. It wasn't just a diner anymore. It was hers to rebuild. That night, after her first official shift as manager, Imani walked out of the diner with a different posture. Taller, steadier, unafraid. Ava ran up to her in the parking lot, arms flying open. Mama, you're smiling. Imani laughed, scooping her daughter into her arms. I have a new job, baby. Ava pulled back, eyes wide. Does it mean we can buy cereal with the marshmallows now? Imani laughed harder, tears in her eyes. Yes, she whispered. We can buy anything you want. She turned, finding Liam waiting by his truck, hands in his pockets. You ready for tomorrow? He asked. Imani nodded. For the first time, yes, I'm ready. Liam gave a small nod, quiet, respectful, then stepped aside, letting her and Ava walk ahead. Under the streetlight glow, Imani held her daughter tighter, whispering to herself, no more surviving. Now we rise. If you believe stories like this should keep coming, hit share, hit like, and subscribe. Your support helps justice win.